Welcome back, everybody. You're here at KGTR. This is Tony. If you haven't already, click subscribe, hit that notification bell. Any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. We got a special treat. We have another magazine review. This is Kerrang! This is the first issue of January of 1982. We've already covered 1981. Now we're on to heavy metal, as seen and noted back in January of 1982. Where were you in January of 1982? I was in high school. Alright, this is issue number 7. Look, Kerrang! So we're going to go ahead and look at this issue page by page. Some of you have never seen these magazines or remember them. Some of you may have remembered them or have these. And again, you can find all these issues on eBay. Just go to eBay and type up any magazine you want. I'm sure someone out there is selling them used. And you may get them dirt cheap or pay a pretty penny for the magazines. But pretty much all these magazines that we review, you can find them on eBay. Alright, let's go ahead and begin. We're going to go page by page. We're going to comment, see what was happening back in January of 1982. Now, to put things in perspective, in just a few short months, we're going to lose Randy Rhoads. Isn't that weird how we're already into the future? And we can go back in time, like Back to the Future, the movie. We can go back in time to January 1982. And if only we could warn Randy, don't get on the airplane, Randy. Please. You know, stuff like that. So that's what these page by page magazines let us do. We get to go back in time and say, oh, you're not going to make it. Oh, you're going to get a different singer. You're going to break up by 1985. You're going to fizzle by 1984. You're going to be big. You're going to have this big blockbuster album in 1987. If only we could tell these bands that. All right, let's go ahead. Here's the front cover. We got MOTORHEAD. So anybody knows who this person. Look at this. This bass. The Squire bass. That's the Squire bass by Rickenbacker Squire bass. Or it might. I don't know what this is called. I'm thinking of Billy Squire. The Billy Squire? From Yes. Anyway, this is a Rickenbacker bass. I love this bass. Alright. So we have UFO, Rush, Priest, Leopard. See, back then, I don't know if it's because of print or just because I remember that back in high school, you would be like, let's go see the Priest. We knew that meant Judas Priest. Let's go see Ozzy. You wouldn't say Ozzy Osbourne. You would say, let's go see Rush, obviously, right? So we got Sabbath, not Black Sabbath, but Sabbath. Tigers of Pangat, whatever that is. I don't know that band. Bon Scott, right? Isn't that with AC/DC? Girl School, they're still around. Remember, we saw them in 1981 issues. Here they're still here in 1982. All right, Hawkwind. I never heard of a band, Hawkwind, but we're going to see who Hawkwind is. Ken Nugent. Remember, he was really big in the mid-late 70s. Now he's basically trying to still stay relevant in 1982. Ken Nugent. So in 1982, we had Diver Down. Sometime in 1982, right, we had Diver Down. 78 was Van Halen 1. 79, Van Halen 2. Women and Children First in 1980. 81 was Mean Street. 82 was Diver Down, right? What was 83? Or it was 83 Diver Down? Fair Warning, I'm sorry. Yeah, Fair Warning was 81. 82 was Diver Down. Or 83. So I'm correct me if I'm wrong. Put it in the comments and say, Tony, you're wrong. This is when the Van Halen. Anyways, I'm trying to put things in perspective. But here, look, they're not talking about Van Halen here. Let's go ahead and open her up and see what's in this issue. Alright, they always have a column called Mayhem. Look at Kiss. So this is 1982. This is still the Dynasty outfit. Can remember the last issue they had the Elder outfit. Now this is the Dynasty outfit. So the Dynasty was what, 79. So this is the older picture. All right, here's some tour news. All right, we have Sammy Hagar. So Sammy Hagar was going to tour in 1982. We got Black Sabbath over here. We got Motorhead. We got Girl School. We got the Scorpions. We got Iron Maiden. On tour, we had, look, the Ozzy Osbourne band. That's not what they were called, the Ozzy Osbourne band. They were called Ozzy, or Ozzy Osbourne. Diary, Madman, Blizzard of Oz, on December 22nd. So, okay, on December 22nd of 1981, they started their tour, I believe. I could be wrong, but They were talking about the tour. Oh, if only someone could tell Randy, don't get on the plane, Randy, please. Right, so there's that. All right, who's this? Okay, I don't know who this is. I don't know if this is from Metallica or if this guy is from, this could be this guy right here, right? Is this guy right here from Motorhead? Let me know. It could be. Because this whole thing could be a spread on Motorhead. Look, Black Bart and his gang. Chris Marlowe joins Motorhead on their first tour of America and discovers that Lemmy, Phil, and Eddie are not as frightened as she thought. Isn't this cool? Again, a lot of people got exposed to Motorhead via video. But now they're going to cross over and come to the U.S. and start touring. And they got a big following because they're really, really heavy. And guys love their metal. So they're talking about here about coming to the U.S. So that could be scary and fun and exciting. Right, here they are. Motorhead from previous page. So if you want to learn about this, I'll be happy to read it to you. And more on the upcoming tour of the U.S. with Motorhead right there. Right, a touch of class. I don't know who that is. Doesn't tell me right here. Oh, the band and Howard Johnson agree that Riot have got it. So they should have put Riot over here. But anyway, so here's the band Riot. And this is about an article about the band Riot. Look, I told you I was right. Look, Kiss, The Elder. So a lot of people did not like the Elder. A majority of Kiss fans did not like The Elder. I liked it. I thought it was good. It wasn't great. It wasn't their best, but that's all they had put out. And so it was a Kiss album. I wanted to like it, but it was night and day to Van Halen, right? By this time, you're like, okay, this is hard rock. Van Halen was metal. They're playing Fair Warning, Mean Streets, and I Don't Want to Hear About It Later. That was heavy metal, right? And here's Kiss. I am just a boy. So this was like too corny now for rock fans and metal fans. And by this time now, a lot of the kids were growing up. The kids from 76, 77, 78 were now teenagers or in high school. And they just couldn't get into Kiss doing the disco, then Kiss doing the Elder. So they were starting to follow Motorhead, Rush, Sabbath, Priest, and so on and so on. So it puts things in perspective. All right, I can read part of this, I think. Metal Mastermind number 2. So this pretty much tests your IQ. Check your heavy metal IQ. Magnus Mayhemus, world-renowned Icelandic heavy metal highbrow and part-time Kerrang quizmaster, sets another 75 mind-brain-busting heavy metal questions. Your time starts now. And this is, when did the Mango Tango band, I can't read that small. But anyways, if you want to know about this quiz, I'll be happy to, I can make a video on the quiz if you want to, and we can read this aloud. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video on Metal Mastermind quiz number 1, where I'm going to read all the questions, and Metal Mastermind 2, where I'll read all the questions. So if you're a fan of heavy metal, and you thought you knew your metal back in 1982, this is January of 82, we'll test your skill. Alright, look at this. I love looking at this. Joe Elliott, Def Leppard. Def Leppard was good. The first album or two were good, right? Nice and heavy, but they blew up with Pyromania, right? That's when Phil Collins joined the band. They did. So Pyromania was like incredible. That with Quiet Riot, Mental Health, and Shout Out the Devil by Motley Crue. So Def Leppard doesn't know what's coming until 1983. So Def Leppard, they're still paying their dues. Look, this is Tiger of Pantang and UFO. The UFO was good, right? They were still kicking ass. Def Leppard was good, but they were not about to explode yet. They were going to explode in one more year. Remember, they did, I don't know if they did the S Festival. I don't know if they played the S Festival, but I just know that album was like incredible for them in 1983. But this is 1982, January of 82. So just pay your dues a little bit more, Joe Elliott. And you're going to be huge. You're going to be really huge with Pour Some Sugar on Me era 1987. That album's going to make you guys really rich and huge, and you're going to be selling out arenas. So stay tuned, little Joe Elliott. Right? Look, Brock's Fireworks. Dave Brock, Monster of Hawkwind. So here's Hawkwind. There's the band Hawkwind. I heard of Hawk. I never heard of Hawkwind. Guarantees Chaos Diwali that their new album, Sonic Attack, will make your eyes water. Well, listen, Hawkwind, you never made it in the US? I never saw any videos. You fizzled out probably in 1982. So, I'll look you up though. Any of you want to look up Hawkwind? Just type in Hawkwind 1982 on YouTube. See what you find. Let me know what you find. Let me know if they were good. Look, here they are right here. Hawkwind. Are they progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal? Who knows? Look, here's Hawkwind right here. Look, Hawkwind. So here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4-piece band or 5-piece band. 1, 2, 3, 4-piece band. Let me know what you thought of Hawkwind. All right, here's Neil Peart of Rush. Little do they know they're going to make it really big. 1983. A Modern Day Warrior. Unless that was already out. Moving Pictures. But they're going to get huge in about a year or two. Even bigger than they were. And they're about to explode also. Rush. Right. Exit stage left. A Rush update by Rush drummer Neil Peart. So if you want me to read this out loud to you, let's see what Neil Peart was talking about in 1982. Again, this is small print. I'd have to like zoom this really big and nothing. So what I would do is I would print this out and then read it out loud to you. And we can do that if you want to. Let me know. All right, look. Heavy metal. The Friday Rock Show. The Friday Rock Show from BBC Radio. So Diamond Head. Sweet Savage. Witchfind. That's pretty cool, right? Witchfind. Last Flight. Black Axe. Demon Spider. Or Demon Spider and Zero. Look how they spell Zero with the X. Zero. So, but where's Angel Witch? I want to know about Angel Witch. Alright, so is that pretty cool? Alright, I Got Stung. This talks about the drummer for the Scorpions. How he got stung and he's about to release his solo debut. I didn't know that, but back in 1982, he did a solo record. The drummer for the Scorpions. Alright, here's some cartoons, some heavy metal cartoons right there. Big bucks. That's what A to Z were after. Howard Johnson thinks it's as easy as ABC. Okay, I never heard of A to Z. Maybe they got a video out there. Here's a look. A Gibson Flying V. Another Gibson Flying V. Let me know if you ever heard of A to Z. But I guess they were just in it for the money, according to this. They're probably saying, we're going to be huge. We're going to tour the world. We hope to travel to the US. I'm just making that up. I don't know what the article says. But that'll be cool if they were still around in 1982 or 83 or 84. I never heard of A to Z. Let me know if you have. Alright, look at this poster. Again, you would carefully remove the poster or the staples here, and you would hang this on your bedroom wall or your locker at high school. Black Sabbath. Look who's here. The emergence of the new singer. Remember, they had just kicked out Black Sabbath. They had just kicked out Ozzy Osbourne. What, 79? Yeah, in 79. 78 was their last tour with Ozzy. And then I guess they broke up or they kicked them out. And then he formed his own band with Randy Rhoads. So here in 1982, here's Black Sabbath. And Ozzy was pretty much happy because he was having huge success with his own band. But little did he know that in a few months, I want to say March, I forgot when Randy passed. But in a few months, Randy's going to pass away. How sad. Alright, Armed and Ready. So these are the upcoming bands that they recommend that you should watch out for, or new releases coming, or tour dates. Sapphire Call, or Sapphire Cave. There's a band right there. No From. So there's a band called No From, I guess. Front Row, or From Out. I don't know what these names, these weird names, aren't they? Unless I'm wrong. Alright, Tough Stuff. Nick Kemp talks to the new look Samson. Alright, remember I was asking you in the last issue? I never heard of Samson. So here's the band Samson. Again, any of you want to check them out? I would think Either they have some releases on YouTube, studio releases or singles, or maybe there's some footage of Samson live in 1981 or 82. So just type in Samson live 1981, 82, or Samson heavy metal band, and their discography or singles to show up. All right, I'm curious also. Let me know what you find. All right, we're almost done here. All right, in this issue, there's more. Again, this is small print, but we just want to glance through this. Look, back to the roots. Rob Halford. Again, look, he looks different here, right? Some dark hair, or not blonde, but it's dark. Rob Halford talks to Steve Gett about Judas Priest's new album and why he thinks the band is rejuvenated. So look, isn't this cool? The last issue had some Judas Priest in it, and it showed you there are 6 albums to date. And I mentioned in December of 81 that in 1982, their biggest album of all time for Judas Priest, I think, was Screaming for Vengeance. I could be wrong. Maybe it was Painkiller or whatever the album is called. But I thought Screaming for Vengeance was their biggest album, their breakthrough album, which made them huge. It was awesome. I loved it. I remember buying the cassette tape of Screaming for Vengeance at Tower Records. And I played that thing. It was awesome. But look, this he hasn't shaved his head yet, or had that metal look, that leather look. But the band, it's bloody fantastic when fans pay their money, which might be the last few quid they've got to come and see Priest. It's all magic. See, that's what you said. You didn't call them Judas Priest. You call them Priest. The fans call them Priest. We're going to go see the Priest, and that's what you would do. But yeah, little did they know. They loved the album Screaming for Vengeance, but it was going to be huge for them. And again, that tour, live in Memphis, Tennessee. Type in Judas Priest live, Memphis, Tennessee, 1982. You'll see that entire show, but it's in clips with each song. There used to be the whole show, but now they banned it, they block it. I tried to upload it myself, but it got blocked. But the entire show is uploaded, but in separate video clips of each song. I have it in its entirety on DVD, and it's a great show. That's how I was exposed to Judas Priest live. And I fell in love with Judas Priest after that concert. And that was also live on MTV. So, isn't this pretty cool to go back in time? All right, look, Rob Halford. Again, this look is different than the look he had on the Live in Memphis tour. All right, so it just looks different here than he did live in Memphis. Maybe because he had the shaved head, and he looked more leathery. But here he is, Stars and Their Bikes. Look, Praying Mantis. That's such a corny name for a heavy metal band, but they thought it was cool. Let me know if you ever heard of Praying Mantis. I've never heard of them. Again, this is from the UK, so maybe they were popular. I'm not going to say big, but maybe they were popular in the UK. But let me know if you've ever heard of Praying Mantis. Again, just go to YouTube. I'm sure they may have some stuff out there. All right, Strictly for Connoisseurs. Blue Oyster Cult, Blue Oyster Cult. Tammy Ballin, Teaser. Black Sabbath, Sacrifice. Led Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin. Iron Butterfly, Metamorphosis. So they're basically unearths another 5 cranium titlers. So they're recommending these albums right here. So if you love music, he recommends these and you'll be very happy. Alright, look at Bob Scott. Again, this should be right before his death. Isn't that sad? Or before his death. This could have been right before his death. But there he is right there. Isn't that sad? Look. Alright, Girl School. Look at Girl School right there. Girl School was good. I like Girl School. For an all-girl band, they were heavy, they were good. Alright, Back to the Rock. Isn't that cool? Look at these records here, look. Alright, so the Deep Purple LP guide. So these, what's it say? 13 years after Deep Purple formed, Simon Robinson takes on a look at their catalog. I can read that. Or at their output, I'm sorry. This is a stupid font on that color. You can't read it. Should have been black. Alright, so look. These are their albums that Deep Purple did. There's Richie Blackmore. I don't see Jolene Tyler. I got exposed to them with Stone Cold. Obviously, everybody knew about Smoke on the Water, but Stone Cold, I like Stone Cold. So, you want to know about that? We'll do it. Some crosswords, clues across, the answers right here. Pen pals again, snail mail. Alright, we're almost done here. Rock cassettes. You want to order some cassettes? There you go. Here's some jewelry, some heavy metal jewelry. Classifieds. You want to put a classified in there? Go ahead and fill this out. Pay your fee. Look, here's Sammy Hagar tour dates right there with Black Sabbath. Look at this. Here's a Black Sabbath tour dates, and here's Sammy Hagar. Right, look, heavy metal. I remember that. Heavy metal, that album. Or the movie or the album? Both, or the soundtrack. Heavy metal. Letters to the editor. There's Ozzy. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and fill it out. Mail it in. Maybe your letter or question will be asked. I can't read this. This is too small, but you get the idea. And there is the back cover of the infamous issue with Motorhead. So let me know your thoughts on the very first premiere issue of Kerrang! That came out in January of 1982. We've already covered 1981. Now we're giving you the very first issue of Kerrang! That was released in January of 82. Where were you in 82? What was your favorite bands in 82? Out of all these bands right here listed, did you go see any of these? Did you buy their albums? There's no Van Halen talking here, but UFO, Rush, Priest, Def Leppard, they're all about to get bigger in 1983. So that was the Kerrang! Issue for January of 82. Any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. I'm Tony. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all real soon.